Hello, and welcome to Tuesday Talks with Mom. I'm Tera Myers, and I am so glad you're here. As part of Moms on a Mission, we're empowering moms across the country to stand up and advocate for their children's educational freedom. As a mom of an adult son with Down syndrome, I've walked this road, navigating the school system and fighting for the right to choose the best education for my child. And now I'm here to share that journey with you. Every 2 weeks, we'll sit down with different moms from around the country and provide thoughtful advice and share our experiences. Together, we're building a community of moms who are finding their voices, taking action, and making a difference. Welcome to Tuesday Talks with Mom. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us again for another episode of Tuesday Talks with Mom. And today I have Becki Uccello here with me to follow up and some questions submitted by Clarice Jackson. I'll tell you, if this isn't a mom's episode, we've got mom in the car, we've got
Yep.
mom missing in action, and we've got mom in the office. So this is a true testament, Becki, of what moms do
Yes.
every single day, isn't it?
Yep. This is what we do.
Well, I am so glad that you all decided to come back and join us again for the final episode of Overcoming Parental Fears and Advocating for Your Children. And Becki, I think we know firsthand what it is to be fearful, don't we?
Yes, we do. We
Well,
do. Oh,
go ahead.
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, that is, I think that's a characteristic that all mothers go through at some point, whether it's fear because of a child's health condition or educational choices or just, wondering what the future holds. I think all mothers share in that.
I would agree. I remember raising my toddlers and now watching my daughter raise her toddlers and constantly the stress that you're under trying to figure out, am I doing it right? And the age
Yes.
old don't compare. I mean, did you experience that?
Mhm.
Don't compare. Your children are different. And
Yes.
no two parents are going to parent exactly alike. And you have to find what fits your parental piece. And
Absolutely.
and as a teacher, you would probably agree no two children learn exactly alike, correct?
You are exactly correct, Tara. Give me a classroom of 32 students, and I will show you 32 people that learn differently.
And I think we need to remember that as moms and dads, and maybe even grandparents and aunts and uncles that are helping with the education of our children across this nation, that no two children are the same. No two learning environments will meet every single child's needs, and that we need to have
Exactly.
some grace. Don't you think? We have to have some grace with each other.
Absolutely. My son graduated from public high school, and my daughter is currently being homeschooled in ninth grade. So, I mean, we're a prime example of a family that recognizes not every student is going to learn the same, even two students from the same family.
I would agree. And it took me a long time to be able to choose this learning environment specifically for my children because I was under the age old belief that we had to use our neighborhood school, regardless whether it worked or not, and that every child needed to belong in the same learning environment. And it wasn't until I overcame that fear and that stigma that I realized that each one of my children needed something different. My
Yeah.
daughter, my second child, flourished when she was sent to the smaller private school. And my youngest child, my youngest daughter, loved being homeschooled. In fact, she fit really well in the public school. And then Samuel, he needed an independent or an individual learning environment where he could learn some functional skills and make sense of his life, but also needed a hybrid option where he could actually work alongside other students that could be peers of his. So right within our own family bounds, we realized, I think both of us, that all children are different.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, one of the questions that Clarice was kind enough to share with us was, when did we first realize that our children were struggling in school? And how did that moment affect you emotionally as a mom? Oh, it's a big one,
Oof.
isn't it?
Yeah, it is. with our daughter, I realized in kindergarten it was uh, about this time of year because we went in for parent teacher conferences, and I did not realize that her special education teacher had retired. Nobody had told me. Um, Nobody had told me who the new one was going to be. I don't know if they even knew at the time who the new one was going to be. Um, the teacher just was very frank and said, "I'm sure you realize your daughter is failing." And so I talked to my husband when I got home, and I learned very quickly that year I do not want to go to meetings by myself. And we talked about that in the last mom talk, I think. Like, always take somebody with you. You never want to um, go by yourself because you need an extra set of eyes and an extra set of ears. So, I mean, I was just devastated by the whole interaction with the teacher, and I thought we can't spend the whole year doing this. And that's when I started looking at other options, and I just wasn't sure if a private school would take her because of her disabilities. Um, but yeah, we pursued the option, and that's what got started on our advocacy journey, because I knew other states had educational savings accounts, and I wanted Missouri to have that opportunity as well.
Well, my learning of the difficulties was very similar. It was a shock and awe piece. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting things to be going great, and my daughter was actually the first one that I realized when she was in first grade that, oh gosh, I thought I was going to have to worry so much about my son. And that was just a constant effort. But my daughter, then I realized this learning environment isn't well suited for her either. And it was a parent teacher conference where the teacher actually pulled me aside and said, you really need to look at possibly sending your daughter to a private school with a smaller classroom, and protecting her. And those reasons were not just academic. Yeah. She said, this public environment is going to eat your daughter up. You need to get her into a protected environment. And I remember being,
Wow.
yeah. And I was shocked. And I remember going and talking to the principal, and he said, you need to just toughen her up. School isn't what you remembered, right? And I'm not even going to frighten anybody with the comments that were made of some of the things that were happening at school, but it was heartbreaking for me. And so I did make some choices. I did choose different options, but it broke my heart because I really wanted what I had experienced for my children, but it
Yeah.
wasn't the same. It really wasn't the same. And so I tell other mothers out there, trust your gut. When somebody
Yes.
comes and tells you there's a concern, listen to them. Don't be afraid. Don't hang on to what your hopes and dreams were. Realize that the evolution of what your child needs could change at any time, and be willing
Absolutely.
to face that. So, did you ever experience any mom guilt, Becki, in regards to that, or did you overcome it quickly and easily?
I did experience mom guilt that entire year because I thought, what can I do to make this a better experience for my daughter? Because it was kindergarten. And I always thought kindergarten was where you learn to follow directions and you learn to stand in line for the water fountain and you learn how to play on the playground and say please and thank you. Like, just those social norms. I thought I really did not know how academic kindergarten had become. And so as the year went on, I felt guilty that it just wasn't getting any better. And I just wasn't quite sure what to do. And I didn't feel like I had anybody around me to give me advice because no one had experienced what we had experienced. But once we pivoted to parochial school for her, then I felt a little mom guilt that we hadn't pursued that for our son. And by that time he was going into high school. And I thought, maybe we should try something different for him. But public school seemed to work for him, and um, I didn't want him to change his school environment for the sake of change. I didn't want that. Um, and he had some good opportunities in public high school. But it was just not the journey I had envisioned. So I was worried that I was doing it wrong.
It's funny that you say that. Of a cousin of mine, when things weren't going great according to what she had hoped for, she made a statement, and I use it often. Sometimes life just doesn't quite turn out the way you had hoped it would, and
True.
that's a paraphrase from what she said. But I do think about that, and I tell parents often when they call me and say, "What do I do? This is happening or that's happening. I don't want to be unliked. I don't want my child. I don't want there to be retaliation against my child."
Mhm.
And I say, the worst thing we can do is allow guilt or fear to overcome us. The best thing that we can do is to pause and to look at the vast landscape of opportunities that may be out there for our
Yes.
children and to embrace them and to realize that, you
Yes.
know what? Sometimes life just doesn't quite turn out the way that you had imagined it to. And it's okay to pick up and change things. It's okay to realize, well, every day is a new day to start over, right, Becki? I mean, wouldn't you say
Yes,
that?
and Tara, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said, when you talk about pausing, it's okay to pause and just kind of evaluate where we are right now and where we want to be, and how do we get to where we want to be. And I felt a lot of pressure, and it was all me. Nobody else was putting the pressure on me, but I felt pressure that I needed to make some decisions quickly, and I'm glad we made the decisions that we made. Don't get me wrong, but it's okay to pause. It is okay to breathe. It's okay to evaluate. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right. Well, now let's kind of pivot a little bit in the conversation because, yes, we have mom guilt, we have fear of retaliation, we have questioning expectations. But what happens when we embrace the possibility of new? When we embrace the possibility of there is another option? We do have resources. And this is for not just children with special needs, but all children. I have two children who are typically developing. You have one, and then we each have a child with special needs. And, all of those children, between us, five children, all of those children
Hmm.
need options. And what happens when you put your fear aside? Let's give parents some hope. When you put your fear aside and you let go of the guilt and you let go of the question mark that you had, tell me some things that you found could be really helpful and really great in spreading that bright sunshine across the canvas of your family's life.
Well, for us, when we pivoted to parochial school, Izzy instantly found an environment where she flourished. Part of that is because there was a heavy emphasis on um, teachers believing that every child is a gift from God, and every child um, it is God's child. And that attitude, that environment, just really was a beautiful thing. And they met her, every teacher she had met her where she was, and modified as needed, accommodated as needed. Um, she was able to go on field trips, which she wasn't in the public school because they did not bother to schedule field trips that were wheelchair accessible. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. But at the parochial school, every field trip was wheelchair accessible. And I just can't emphasize enough how the teachers and the staff met her where she was and helped her along the way. And now we have pivoted to homeschool as of this summer, and that's exciting because um, she's on this road trip with me right now. And if she had been in a typical school environment, I don't think we would have pulled her out for a week. So it's exciting when you know that there are choices that you can do, and you've got you have choices. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. When you have choices and you know what works for your kids, it's an incredible place to be.
I love it. Well, I have to tell you, for me, when I realized that I had other options and I let go of my fear of trying those other options, I realized that there were other people that wanted to work with my children, that wanted to work with me, and that the collaboration idea that I had in my mind was not the Pollyanna um, story that the public system that we lived in tried to tell me that it was. They tried to say, well,
Mhm.
you're just such a Pollyanna. You think this is going to be better. And what I found was that when you work together to try to solve the problem of educating a child, regardless of what their needs are, that everybody wins. The
Yep.
children that are changing into a program that is better for them benefit. The children at that program or school benefit. The parents
Yes.
can feed into each other's lives. Everybody has something to learn. And the
Hmm.
beautiful thing about it, even the school administration system, I tend to believe with a little bit of skepticism sometimes, what if I'm going to get the same thing that I've always gotten? And I realize that the power of choice allows you, the parent, I've said this so many times, people are probably sick of hearing me say it, but when you're in the driver's seat, no pun intended for you trucking down the road, but when you're in the driver's seat, you have the ability to determine who gets on or off of your bus. And
Yes.
the beautiful thing about choice is that if it's not working, you get to pick up your proverbial suitcase, throw it on your bus, and drive away.
Yep. Yep.
Or if somebody within that system isn't working, you have the ability to pull over, open the door, and ask them to step off.
Yep.
Whereas in our original placement, we didn't have that opportunity. We were stuck with whatever we got. And I heard that from them, specifically for
Hmm.
my child with special needs. I heard, this is all you get, like it or not. We get to determine what we feel is appropriate for your child.
Yep.
Even though the data and myself and the therapist were saying, this is not appropriate, it doesn't matter. We get to determine. So I found that by letting go of the fear, by calling and talking and collaborating with the people that wanted to make a difference, that I was able to open doors of opportunity for all three of my children. And ultimately, we had to try three different avenues of opportunity, but we benefited so much in the end. So I think I would say to other parents, embrace the possibility of change,
Yes.
embrace the freedom of knowing that you know your children better than anyone else,
Yes.
embrace the enthusiasm to step out in an adventure on a journey,
Hmm.
if you will,
Yep.
and bring the people with you that essentially want to see your child win. Because isn't this,
Yes.
Becky, you're a former teacher. Isn't this
Yep.
what we all want is the success of our children?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Unfortunately, there are systems in place that don't care as much about the children's success as we would want them to be. Um, I always cheered on my students in my classroom, and I advocated for them and for support for their needs. Not every teacher is like that, and certainly not every system is about that. And Tara, I love what you say, and you can say it all day long because I love hearing it. Letting people off the bus. We drive the bus, and we can let people off the bus if they're not the right fit for our kids. And we can invite people on the bus if they are a good fit for our kids. And I think that's so important that parents realize we're we have the control. We have our kids' best interests at heart. And if somebody needs to step off, great. If somebody needs to step on, even better.
I love it. Yes. And I think that what I found was that people get excited about being included in solving
Hmm.
those problems.
Yep.
One teacher that I talked to shared with me that she had all kinds of ideas on resources, but was constantly told, no, we don't need your ideas. We're
Hmm.
going to do what we've always done. And, my thing was, well, you're not getting good results. So if you have children that are falling behind and you have children that are not succeeding, why would you not be open to embracing the possibility of something different? And
Right.
the teacher was like, this is so refreshing because you're not attacking me. You're not
Hmm.
questioning my ability as a teacher. You're opening the door for me to be able to be creative and enthusiastic, but I'm being told by my administration that I'm not allowed to do that. And though it was hard for me to have to switch environments and lose that teacher, she still was able to feed into me as the driver of the bus, if you will,
Hmm. Yep.
ideas and suggestions that ultimately helped us at the end of the day. And
Yeah.
the same thing was true for therapists as well. I was able to
Hmm.
bring those therapists along with me, and they continued to teach me as a parent, as a learning coach, as ultimately eventually my child's teacher in another system. They continued to be able to share their wealth of knowledge because they had an
Hmm.
open door to opportunities and resources
Yes.
for children. And
Yep.
a couple of them even said, well, I don't support choice. I support the local district. I support, and I said, if it works, why would you not support it? Well, we've been told. I go, by
Hmm.
who? By who? The master of education? I said, what, again, why are you in business? Why are you doing what you do? Well,
Hmm.
to educate and to help children. Okay. Is there a prescribed only location? Like, is there only one way to do that? Well, no, of course not. Okay, then why don't we embrace the idea that some locations may work for some children, some
Hmm.
curriculums may work for other children, and just embrace the fact that everybody should get to choose what is best for the child. So I found that by encouraging parents like myself to be able to
Hmm.
embrace the teachers, the therapist, anybody that was willing to come alongside, that everybody
Yep.
wins.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I love the adults that are problem solvers. I love inviting them in on our journey. We don't always have the exact answers, but there are other people that we can collaborate with and network with. And if somebody doesn't know the answer, somebody probably knows somebody who knows the answer. So that's helpful too.
That's right. Well, you know what? I think that I would like to pivot just for a little bit here before we close about what happens if it doesn't exist. I've
Mm,
talked to a lot of parents that said, well, what I need doesn't exist. And I always tell them, isn't that interesting? What I needed didn't exist either. But I decided to step out in faith and try it myself. And I had no guarantee, I had no financial backing. I had, I had a curriculum that I found and modified, and I had an incredible educational resource through an intervention specialist. And I just stepped out in faith. And somebody said to me, what would you have done if it wouldn't have worked, if they didn't agree to model your idea? And I said, well, I probably would have brought it home and created from scratch in my basement because homeschoolers have been doing
hmm.
this for decades. They've been doing it for decades.
Yep.
So, what do you
Yep.
have to say to the mom or dad or parents or whoever is with the children? What do you have to say about that? Like about the fear of creating it yourself? What's your thoughts on that, Becki?
I it's scary because I have said this before in other aspects of my life. I am not a creator. Give me a set of guidelines, I can follow them, but I'm not a creator by nature. But on the flip side, going back to what we continue to say, we know our children best and we know how they learn best. And I know it is scary to create an environment for your kid to flourish educationally and academically, but you need to give it a try. You need to you need to you need to look at that as an opportunity that may end up helping other families. I mean, you just don't know. And so I would encourage parents, see what works, see what you can try, because we are living in an age in our country where choice is just exploding everywhere, and especially with the one big beautiful bill and that tax credit that states are deciding whether or not to accept. I mean that is a game changer for a lot of families in a lot of states. And I would just encourage parents, do a little digging, do a little research, see what you can find. talk to other parents and see what has worked for them, because you don't have to stick with just one system. You can piece together what's going to work for your kids.
I think that's wonderful, Becki. And I want to encourage every parent that is listening to us tonight. Step outside of your comfort zone. Be willing to try something new. Talk to those around you that are doing something different. Do not fall susceptible to the fears that society wants to put on us. We know our children better than anyone else. You are the best person to make the best decision for your child. And the
Yes.
beautiful thing about choice is that if this decision isn't the very best, you can always change your mind tomorrow to find one that
Yep.
is. So,
Yep.
Becki, I am just thankful that you joined me today in talking about this. Hopefully, we've helped parents overcome some fears, find ways to solve it. And if you're not sure, always feel free to ask mom at federationforchildren.org, and we
Yes.
will come together and answer your questions as best we can. And if we don't know the answer, we will seek others' advice to help find the answers for you. Any last
Because
words,
that's what
Becki?
we do. That's what
Yes,
we do as moms, right?
that's right. When a mom hears the word mom, we all turn our heads to come running.
Yes.
So, not just for the child, but for another mom. So, we'll stand up
Yep.
with you and for you regardless. So, Becki, thank you. On the road with Becki and in the armchair with Tara. I thank you for tuning in to this episode of Tuesday Talks with Mom. We'll see you next time.
Bye.